Now, when you think of a wrestler's career going downhill, there's many factors that you can attribute to it. You could say booking, you could say mic skills, in-ring talent, or you can even say a scandal that was either in or outside of the wrestling business that would make that company look pretty bad. But what if I told you that somebody's career downhill had to do something with the debut? So let's talk about it. So this story is going to start with Fred. Now, Fred had some experience, developing his skill with places like Georgia Championship Wrestling, Texas All-Star Wrestling, Continental Wrestling Association, Championship Wrestling from Florida, and things of that nature. And not only that, he had the honor of being trained by the late, great Boris Malenko. And his experience will allow him to wrestle for one of the biggest companies at the time, the WWE, which back then that was known as the WWF, and he would go by the name Tugboat. Here's one thing I have a hard time understanding. So he's from Miami, Florida, but they built him from Norfolk, Virginia, I'm guessing, which is around where I live. So I'm guessing because Tugboat boats in the Tidewater area, but aren't there boats in Miami, Florida too? You know what? Never mind. Moving on. He was finding some success in WWF, and he was even being paired with the likes of legends like Hulk Hogan. However, after a while, he would slowly betray those allies and teammates, and he would team with this guy, Earthquake. And from here, he would change his name to Typhoon, and together they'll be known as the Natural Disasters. This actually marks one of his most successful stints, because as Typhoon with the Natural Disasters and Earthquake, they managed to snag the WWF Tag Team Championships. But here's the thing. With Earthquake taking the hiatus from the company, and then he would eventually go off to Japan, that left Fred by himself. And with that, he would actually become a jobber to the stars in the company. And eventually, he would leave the WWF. And yes, I am leaving a lot of factors out of the story, but I'm just doing this for the sake of storytelling. So even though he will leave one big company, he will go to arguably the second biggest company at that time, WCW, World Championship Wrestling. And again, he will be paired by some future legends. We're talking about the likes of Sting, Davey Boy Smith, Sid Vicious, Ric Flair, and the Harlem Heat's Kane and Cole. For those of you that do not know, before Sister Sherry came along, Kane and Cole was what Booker T and Stevie Ray went by. And with all this star power around, he was set to make his WCW debut as the Shockmaster. But unfortunately, this is where the story would go downhill. In spite of a few successful practice runs, Fred's planned breakthrough a wall was changed at the last minute without his or anyone else's knowledge. This caused Fred to hilarious trip over the frame board that held the wall up, also causing his mask to fall off, and this caught everybody by surprise. I mean, you had some audio feeds from Ric Flair, and then you have some expletive audio feeds from Davey Boy Smith and Cole or Booker T. Now, those expletives were a bit harsh. A little surprised from those guys, but I guess with the situation, we should give them grace. But it's not like we're going to hear anything that harsh from either of them again, right?
Hulk Hogan, we coming for you.
So not only this, but Sid Vicious, one of the most intimidating superstars at that time, apparently had to hold his laughter off camera. Now, Fred did his best to shake the blunder off, but then he started miming a voice too early, which made the cameraman cut to Sid Vicious during the outrage at the situation. But apparently what happened there is that the person that was supposed to be miming the voice on the microphone, Ole Anderson, was heard laughing on the microphone, and I guess he missed his cue. I'm not sure how that played out, but yeah, it was pretty wild. So Fred did end up getting through this segment, but as you know, this segment kind of lives in infamy. And the thing is, his team actually won at War Games. He's the one that scored the victory, but his career would not really progress from there. Now, Fred was asked about the situation years later, and he would go, and they put me in a stormtrooper mask, which they painted and covered in glitter. I couldn't see a thing. I got to the wall, put my hands up like a double axe handle, and bust through. The top broke perfectly, but the bottom didn't give. The moment took me through the wall and then to the floor. So let's stop for a minute. Let's talk about that whole stormtrooper helmet. Stormtrooper helmet with glitter. I don't know whose idea that was, and I don't know how anybody thought that was intimidating, because the glitter was all over his chest. And so even if this blunder did not happen, that probably would have been known as one of the tackiest, probably low budget efforts of a costume. But in a way, I can't knock it, because they took a white spray painted Captain Kirk mask and made a successful horror franchise off of that. So I guess anything can happen. That also begs the question, what if this did go without a hitch? Would this segment really be remembered? Because here's the thing. They call this one of the worst debuts in wrestling history, but is arguably one of the best segments, because even though it was pretty bad, it was pretty hilarious, to the point where people who weren't even alive during that time go back on YouTube or whatever and watch this segment over and over and over again. I mean, here I am. Would I be doing the video on this debut had it not had the impact in the wrestling? So this is basically what I say. Yes, even though it's known as one of the worst debuts in wrestling, I say it is a blessing in disguise. And shout out to Fred Ottman.